The federal government has just approved the establishment of 159 new radio and television stations in Nigeria. Following the approval granted by the President, the National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, has released the list of the 159 new licenses that were granted to companies, communities and institutions of higher learning, to include the Federal Polytechnic Ilaro Radio, the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture Radio, the Federated Water Users Association and the Irawa Tuntun Community Development Organization. There are now a total of 625 functional broadcast stations in Nigeria. So, with this new development, what will be some of the advantages? How easy will it be for the NBC to manage and monitor all these stations? How will they cope with issues of fake news and other challenges if and when they arise? Answers to these questions and more will be the focus on the program Nigeria Today as we take a look at the proliferation of electronic media in Nigeria. I'm Dennis Adigunloye. Welcome to the program. All right, with me in the studio to discuss the proliferation of electronic media in Nigeria, we have the Vice Chancellor, Federal University, Kashere Gombe State. He is Professor of Mass Communications, Professor Umar Pate. You're very welcome to Nigeria Today, Prof.
Thank you, Dennis, and good evening, Nigeria.
All right, and also with us here in the studio, we have the former Director of Public Affairs at the National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, Awal Salihu. Nice to have you on the program, sir.
It's good to be here. Hi, Dennis.
All right. Okay, let's begin with Prof. Umar Pate. Your opinion, can we get on the approval of the 59 new radio and TV stations by the federal government?
Well, this is good news for Nigeria and for those of us in the communication sector. I think it is a good effort, and I congratulate the winners, or well, let's say those that have been granted the licenses. I think it must have taken them a lot of investments in terms of resources, in terms of energy, and I'm sure they're really glad that eventually government has approved the licenses, and I'm sure it couldn't have been only 159 that applied. The number could have been higher, but because of the scrutiny process in the NBC and other organs of government, the number perhaps was pruned down to 159. And if you look at Nigeria, with a population of about 210 million or even counting more, is having just about 600 radio and TV stations is still on the low side. And I think we can still afford to have many more network stations. We could afford to have many more state and commercial radio stations and TV stations, as well as community radio and television stations if possible. Don't forget, the internet is also there, and it is in the interest of the government to continuously make registration processes easier and grant as many licenses as possible. Otherwise, people could simply go to the internet where the control is less and establish whatever kind of radio station, whatever kind of TV station they want, and go ahead broadcasting to the whole world. The internet has made things very, very easy. Therefore, tightening control in this sector could, at the end of the day, become counterproductive.
All right. So let me bring Awal Salihu, the former Director of Public Affairs, NBC. What's your take on this latest developments?
Well, it's a very good development. The more the voices, the better the democracy. The more people are allowed to come out and say their minds, the better for government to know, to read the feelings of Nigerians in that context. Now, the number of stations that were actually released is quite interesting, and it is good because the kind of role that those people can play is such that it will help government. What I'm trying to say is most of the people that were given, apart from perhaps the institutions of higher learning, I think most of them are private. It's private individuals that are now coming into the fray. It's not government, it's not anybody. So I think it is good. The more diverse the voices, the better for democracy. And I think government deserves to be congratulated on that. And also congratulations to the owners. Now the hard work of putting up a station, bringing about compelling content that will be of use to the country, and also trying to meet with the competition, because that means they now have to compete more and more for the scarce advertising naira that is out there for them to use.
All right, Prof, let me come back to you. Just highlight for us what, in your view, would be some of the advantages of this federal government move. How will Nigerians be positively affected or impacted? And practitioners in the entire broadcast industry, what is your take on how this will develop in the long term?
Thank you very much. We are in a democratic era, and you cannot talk about democratization without talking about the opening up of the media space, so that people could have the freedom to be able to express as well as receive information. And for you to be able to do that, you need as many outlets as possible. You need as many sources and voices to come up, so that people could have avenues for them to interact, for them to express their views, and for even the government itself. And like I've said, the internet is there to provide alternative spaces for people to express themselves. Now, with opening up as many radio stations and TV stations as possible, Nigerians could have opportunity to exchange and air their views that may be different from each other. But one thing I want us to also put our attention to is the issue of some of the areas being hugely disadvantaged. Now, let me give you one or two examples. If you look at all these licenses, some particular areas appeared to be more advantaged than others. And it's not as if it is deliberate. It's because people are applying. Some other places, people are simply not applying. Now, take Borno State. Borno State has one of the largest expanse of land in this country. And the whole of Borno State has only, maybe I think there's only one license that has been granted to Dandal Kura. And if you look at the landscape of Borno, FM stations, most of them are in Maiduguri. And the other areas remain simply spaces that are not covered by any Nigerian radio signal. And this is not only in Borno State. Go to Taraba, go to Yobe, all these big states. Now, if you take the southwestern zone of this country, with an FM transmitter in Lagos, you could maybe reach up to Ibadan or cover up to Ogun State. But with an FM transmitter in Borno, you can hardly go some few kilometers out of Maiduguri for so many other reasons. So a lot of the other areas remain uncovered. You go to Niger State, the story is similar because of their spaces. So, and we do not have SW transmitters now for obvious reasons. And even the MW transmitters that can go fairly more distance than the FM stations are also simply not working. Most of the state stations are supposed to be on NW meter bands, but many of them also are down. So we need to also encourage some other areas in terms of establishment of community radio stations, and that should be made easier, and organizations and local governments should be encouraged to invest in that respect. Otherwise, some other countries will remain informers for Nigeria. Most of our people, particularly not, are hooked up onto stations like BBC, VOA, and others because they do not have alternatives. So I am encouraged that we are establishing as many more radio stations, but most of these stations are concentrated in the urban centers, and their contents are also elite centered because many of them are simply commercially minded. Therefore, the aspect of social responsibility and covering issues that may not likely bring money remain also left uncovered. So these are issues that NBC, I think, needs to think, not only concentrate on people who could afford to open their radio station, but also think of other disadvantaged areas of Nigeria.
All right, Mr. Salihu, you've heard what Prof has just said there, and you're coming from an NBC background, improving on the reach, shall we say, in the rural areas. He gave examples in Borno State. What's in your knowledge, to your knowledge, is the NBC doing to address this particular issue?
Well, I can hardly really speak about what the NBC is doing, but I do know that as a policy, NBC wants to be able to cover every part of Nigeria. That's as a policy, which has been there for a very long time.
Yeah.
And like Prof pointed out, you see, it is when people are willing, to apply for these licenses that NBC can give them. NBC cannot just wake up and say, you come, take a license.
Yeah.
You have to show willingness, you have to show intent, you have to show that you really want to, you also meet all the rules and regulations that come with owning a license. So NBC is willing. I'm sure NBC is poised to give anybody who has a license a license. What I would rather suggest, for me now, is NBC should try and pursue the amendment to the act, setting up the commission to save Mr. President the problem of having to pore over so many stations and sign approval for them. I think that it is time that NBC began to be the warehouse, the stopping, the last batch or the last stop for people who want to apply for a license. There's the capacity. They can train more people if necessary, and they can work with the security forces to make sure that the right people get the licenses. I don't think it is necessary for this to still go up to Mr. President to have to approve broadcast licenses. It's hardly done anywhere else except here in Nigeria, and you can't blame this government because this is what was inherited from the 1999 constitution, which is being operated.
I think it's a military hangover where power was concentrated at one point, and issue of subversion using the media was also feared at that time. But with democratization and opening up, we also need to open up the broadcasting space for Nigerians to know that they could go to the NBC, put in an application, and once they're able to meet the criteria or whatever set by the NBC, they could simply get this license. There's nothing. It's just like any other business in Nigeria.
Yeah. All right. Very interesting comments from you there. We'll bring more on this issue coming up after this break. You are on to Nigeria Today. Stay with us. We'll continue the discussion after this. All right, you're welcome back. The program is Nigeria Today. We are discussing the proliferation of electronic media in the country following Mr. President's approval. We have the Vice Chancellor, Federal University, Kashere, Gombe State, Professor Umar Pate, here with us in the studio. And also with us here, we have the former Director of Public Affairs at the NBC, Awal Salihu. Mr. Salihu, what do you envisage to be any potential challenges in terms of monitoring such an increase in number of stations by the NBC? What do you feel would be the obstacles faced by NBC in terms of monitoring content and that kind of thing?
Well, I do know too that as a policy, NBC makes sure that it is within earshot of virtually every broadcast station. And like Prof pointed out, I should say luckily in this regard, most of them are within urban areas. So they are easily monitorable. NBC has sufficient state offices and sufficient zonal offices which are there listening, so that every broadcast station in the country, there is an office, or there is an officer or a set of officers that are monitoring what it is putting out. That is why there's always a weekly review of what the stations are doing and how those things, are, and that's how, where a station goes, against the law, it is easy for the commission to find out and deal with it. Now, the challenges, of course, with the increase will probably be the issue of manpower. They'll probably need to hire more people in order to be able to cover all the stations that are coming up. They may also need more equipment, and these days it is no longer the physical, using radio and others to listen. There's also the automatic monitoring, which is usually done by satellite, so that you can very easily capture whatever station is running in the country. I think what needs to be done more is hire more people, do more training, and also upgrade in terms of equipment, upskilling the staff, and then upgrading in terms of the equipment that are used for monitoring. But I think that the culture that has been laid down in the MVC is such that there's a thorough there's a thorough process that is used in monitoring whatever station is on air in the country. So I don't envisage that it will have too many problems in terms of monitoring. I don't think that the NBC will, suffer that much because of these new stations that are there, because after all, most of them are within reach, and they have sufficient, state and zonal offices that will cover most of these things. So I don't envisage too many problems, except that issue of modernization and upskilling of staff.
All right, so I guess you're in concurrence with that, Prof.
Well, yes, but there are many more challenges.
Yeah.
Some which the MBC can comfortably handle, but many others that it couldn't. One, political. We are in a political era, and there are a lot of interest groups, some very powerful interests that sometimes may have their own vested interests in broadcasting. And you see them influencing things directly or indirectly that could be unethical. And then, secondly, issue of funding. Many of these broadcast media organizations are commercial. They are struggling to survive. Many are economically challenged. They can't even pay salaries. And then they are desperately in need of money. And in this process, they sell their airtime. And then you could also have people who come with all sorts of opinions that are sometimes very unethical, but they are given the airspace. And NBC sometimes has to make a lot of incursions to see how they could be controlled. Then not only that, the internet is there. With the internet, the challenges are just numerous. Just like there are limitless advantages, there are also numerous disadvantages. Issue of fake news, issue of hate speech that sometimes intrude, maybe not too willingly, into news content, into other programs content. Then you also have untrained staff. Because of the proliferation and the inability of many of these organizations to hire competently trained people, they end up taking quacks who do not even know the rules of broadcasting, who violate the broadcasting code, but they are on airwaves, sometimes as announcers or program presenters or whatever they are. And you hear them saying things that ordinarily they shouldn't. And like I've said again, the internet has also given opportunity for people to establish all sorts of radio and television stations which the NBC may find very difficult to even monitor. And on these stations, anything goes. So by the time you look at all these issues, the issue of funding, the issue of content management, the credibility crisis being experienced in the Nigeria media system, you know that NBC has a lot to be able to do. But they also need to, maybe I have said it once, and I think I may also need to repeat, the NBC needs to establish a broadcasting academy in this country, apart from what we have owned by the NBC. And that broadcasting academy could be like a training ground, even just for refresher courses, not necessarily giving degree or diploma. Just every announcer, every news, whatever that is employed, should go to that academy for some training. And then perhaps we could improve the level of professionalism in the broadcast industry. And that may also help in monitoring, in the monitoring mechanism for NBC. Instead of them every day giving fines and doing this, doing that, attracting sometimes harsh public attention, they may, through their institutions, build the capacity of those that may work in the system.
Yeah, Mr. Saliu, no doubt we are in an era of fake news and mismanagement of information that is disseminated to members of the public. How, in your view, can NBC manage this critical aspect of information dissemination, and how they will obviously respond to those who may be flouting laws of content dissemination to the public?
Yes, the main tool in the hands of the NBC really is the Nigeria Broadcasting Code, which makes provisions for whatever ethical behavior that is needed by broadcasters, and also prescribes the kinds of sanctions that can take place, ranging from a warning all the way up to the withdrawal of a license and a shutdown of the station. All those powers are there with the NBC, and they can easily put it to use but the main problem really is the quality of people who are on air, because like Prof pointed out, without a system like that of the academy, it is difficult to find the right people in the right places. Right now, you see, in Nigeria, we have forgotten the meaning of correct pronunciation. Nigerians make less effort than, say, BBC or VOA staff to pronounce Nigerian names. These are little things, but very, very important and critical. So if Nigeria, for instance, the Nigerian broadcasting stations, for instance, cannot be relied upon to provide the correct pronunciation of Nigerian names, then where else, can people turn to? So this is very, very important and critical. The broadcasters themselves in Nigeria need also to realize that yes, they are they are playing a very critical social service, but they must also be ready to take corrections, because one of the attitudes that Nigerian media takes on when carrying out its function is the assumption that, look, we cannot do anything wrong, and the moment government tries to say no, you can't do this, maybe through the regulator, then the hue and cry comes up that, government is trying to gag the media and all that. So, but you see, self-regulation can only be useful and helpful if we adhere to the tenets of self-regulation. If we know that these are ethical or unethical things, then we keep within the boundaries, then self-regulation becomes useful. But where people get away with murder, literally, and nothing can be done to them, the unions themselves, the organizations dealing with them themselves are not able to bring offenders to book, then you see it becomes a problem, and it becomes a no man's, a lawless country where it will be like the wild west, and anything goes.
Very briefly, please, time is up, but I wanted to give you a last word, Prof, so just go ahead very briefly.
Okay, you can only protect integrity where integrity exists. But where you hire people who do not even have the integrity in the first instance, but simply because they could speak good English and put them on air, they do not have the professional integrity, they may not value it. They could simply come, do what they could, and then at the end of the day, rubbish the profession, cause more confusion in society, and bring wahala into the country.
All right, very good points there. All right, thank you for that, Vice Chancellor, Federal University Kashere, Gombe State, Professor Umar Pate. Many thanks for sharing your thoughts and insights with us.
Thank you very much.
And thanks also to former Director, Public Affairs at the NBC, Awal Salihu. Thanks also for your perspectives.
Thank you very much. It's hard time for me today because I'm asked to speak in front of my teacher.
But you both did very well.
I'm glad I have one here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you both very much. And thanks to you out there for watching. Nigeria Today is live every weekday at 7:30 in the evening. And also you can watch this and other editions on youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. I'm Dennis at Dignoy. Thanks for your time.